Minutes also.
Thanks, Corla. I think it is a real irony that such has been the mishandling of the case for the abolition of the Seanad by the Taoiseach, that the spectre has actually been raised of this archaic, irrelevant and highly undemocratic institution actually potentially being rescued from annihilation. And to me, that would be totally regrettable. And I don't in any way blame people for having that view. It's small wonder. When we have been subjected to listening to government ministers talking about how they have a mandate for this measure. And it is correct that it was in some of the election programmes of the government parties, but so too were many other promises, all of which have been flagrantly broken without a second glance. I think many people are insulted by the fact that we have the example of small Scandinavian countries being lauded by this administration for not having a second chamber, and fair play to them, I don't have a problem with that. But these countries have many other very good healthcare systems, childcare systems and other measures which our government choose to blatantly ignore and not care anything about at all. And of course the real irony for ordinary people looking in at the deliberations of the Taoiseach on this is that somebody who has so poorly trounced on democracy would pose himself as the defender of democracy really is absolutely galling. When we see legislation being forced through this House which gives the power to revenue for deducting the hated home tax from people's wages and social welfare, when we see the financial emergency bill being rammed through and so on. But that said, a broken clock is of course right twice a day, and I do agree with the government that the Seanad absolutely needs to be abolished. That is a correct position in my opinion. The fact that the Dáil itself also needs to be reformed and dealt with severely is something I would also stand for, but the fact that that isn't on the table today isn't a reason for continuing on with the Seanad, which never had a useful purpose and certainly doesn't have one now. And I think the irony of not just the Taoiseach but the likes of Michael McDowell now posing themselves as the great liberators is a bit nauseating and hard to take as well. The points have been well made on numerous occasions by previous deputies. The Seanad was never a democratic institution. It was always elitist. It has always been a consolation prize, either a present for TDs who want to retire into oblivion and take it handy, or a holding operation, a little area where somebody could go in and work their way into becoming and taking a Dáil seat. No direct elections. Most people here, I couldn't name half the Seanad. I'd struggle to name about 10 of them, to be honest. It is a ludicrous scenario that we have people in the Seanad now who couldn't get elected as a county councillor, but because they're in a political party which wants to boost women, for example, that their party organises that 30 people can vote for them, and they end up getting a Seanad seat on a massive salary and an office and so on. They can build their profile to develop a Dáil base. We've other senators obviously in there as well who've repeatedly stood and been rejected by the electorate in Dáil constituency. So this is not a democratic institutional. It was based on vocationalism in the early years, a system based on a papal document, previously throwback really to the guild system from the Middle Ages, and it never operated democratic accountability and so on. I just want to very briefly in the last minute deal with some of the myths that have been introduced in this debate. The idea that the likes of Mary Robinson or David Norris needed the Senate to thrive is ludicrous. These people would have thrived in any environment. They were exceptional people. David Norris in particular, who had a role to play, they would have succeeded anyway. That's not a justification for keeping the Seanad. No legislation has been properly scrutinised or overthrown in any different way by the Seanad than indeed the Dáil. And if the government government was serious, it would be empowering people at local level, transforming local democracy, devolving powers back, critically introducing the only democratic accountability that is relevant, which is giving power to the people and to the citizens in this country, a bottom-up democracy rather than a top-down elitist body. And that has to start with the right to recall for TDs, for more opportunity for referenda and powers being devolved to the citizens of this country, not some elite.